Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am not joined by my co-host, Christy, but I do have a co-host with me. Welcoming back the OG, Steve, to the show. Steve, how are you today?
Not too bad. It's always fun to get up early in the morning to talk about an adventure like this one.
Yes, I am very grateful for both Steve and our guest today for getting up very early on that Pacific time to discuss a entirely brand new ship.
And before we bring the guest on, she's like one of my favorite guests, in all honesty, back when I was doing the podcast, and she's shaking her head. But in all honesty, because you never knew where they were going to go. And it was like one of my favorite things. I think even the very first time, I'm trying to remember how she reached out, but she was like, we went somewhere. It was exciting. I'd like to come on the podcast. Would you have us? And I was like, sure, why not? Let's see where this goes. And they ended up doing the transatlantic, I believe, was the first time, the eastbound one. So, and to this day, I never know where they're going. And this was another one of those where this picture popped up and it was Tim Hortons, which is kind of like the Dunkin' Donuts of Canada, with some caricature writing. And she was like, guess where we are? And I'm like, I have no idea. So I guess British Columbia, but not quite there. So.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. And we would like to welcome back our guest this week, Laurne. Laurne, how are you today?
Great. Really excited to be here and talk about where we went on this adventure.
I like the pun.
If we haven't hinted at it enough, tell us a little bit about what cruise you booked.
So we booked we booked the inaugural maiden voyage of the Disney Adventure out of Singapore.
And you didn't just book the inaugural.
No, we had the inaugural. And then if you're going all that way, you might as well do our first ever back-to-back. And to make it just a little bit sweeter, our second cruise on the ship was in concierge for the first time ever for us as well.
Well, tell us a little bit about that thought process of booking the back-to-back on the adventure.
You know what? It was kind of complicated, but also really easy. We were originally booked on a cruise during this time frame on the adventure, and the adventure maiden voyage got moved out, and it got moved out to when we were going to cruise. And that meant our voyage changed. A lot happened in the lead up to our cruise. And to make everything work with our schedule, we just kind of had to book two. I mean, it just worked out. And so we decided we would do our first ever back-to-back.
I mean, if you had to go that far, as you said, so I don't even remember, was it a 3 and a 4 day or was it a 4 and a 4 day this time?
So it ended up being a 3 and a 3 day, which is not their usual schedule. The way they're doing the schedule right now is a 3 day and a 4 day. And originally we were just booked on a 4 day. But with all the changes, it ended up, if we had just done one cruise, it would only have been a 3 day. And we thought that was just not enough time to kind of explore this massive new ship. And so the only way to get more time was a second cruise.
Well, nothing wrong with that. And I can't wait to hear about your first time sailing in concierge, which we have never done. I don't think, Lake, you guys have done that yet, have you?
We have also not done concierge yet.
A lot of bucket lists.
Was there anything about the booking process that was a little bit different from, booking any of the other ships?
Not really. It was pretty standard booking. I think we were super excited. It turned out to be a lot different because of our cruise being canceled and us having to rebook onto the maiden voyage. That caused, a little bit of tension and stress in the process, to be honest. But past that, it was really just like booking any other Disney cruise. I was able to do it on the website, pick my stateroom. It was a little exciting because there was no stateroom reviews. I had to sort of go with what I thought might be a good stateroom and a good area on the ship and hope I guessed right. But otherwise, it's just like booking a cruise anywhere else. You pick your stateroom, you click how many people, you can do all your payment online. All of the payment is USD, so US dollars, just like it is on any Disney cruise. And it was super simple to be able to book a cruise on the Disney Adventure.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. Before we even get on the ship, first off, as you mentioned, the ship sails out of Singapore. Entirely new port system for DCL. Did you plan on doing any pre-stay before you got on the ship?
We did. So in fairness, we have always wanted to go to Singapore, and it has been on our list for a really long time. And we wanted to make sure we spent some time in Singapore. The cruise was kind of just the thing that sort of pushed us over the edge to finally book that trip, but we weren't going just for the cruise. And so we actually ended up spending a week in Singapore before the cruise. The way our schedule worked out, that just worked the best for us. I think after doing it, I would highly recommend doing a week in Singapore before the cruise, not after. I think that transition makes it a lot easier and a lot nicer. And so we really enjoyed everything we saw in Singapore. It was a great city. A week for us was not enough. I could have tacked on a whole nother week in Singapore and still had things to see. But, there's only so much time you can give to one trip. And a week gave us a pretty good, depth and breadth of what we saw in Singapore before jumping on board the Disney adventure.
And for your planning going to Singapore now, obviously, that's a place that you've always wanted to go to. What were some of the resources that you used to plan this trip?
Sure. So I always love to grab a couple of good guidebooks and check out what they have to talk about and see what looks interesting. I also relied heavily this time on a couple of YouTube sources. So I used a resource called Dashing Heights. And this guy lives in Singapore and he does videos about everything you can see in Singapore, how to book it, how to see it, where to go to get tickets. It was super, super, super useful. He's a really fun guy to watch. They were usually pretty short videos. And this was my best resource for finding sort of the general basic, things to do in Singapore. And then I did a lot of just searching on the internet for some really specific stuff that we kind of knew we wanted to do, especially as I watched his videos, like what's popular in Singapore, what do people do? We really like to tailor our trips to like, what's the thing people do who live there? There's obviously always some really, highlight tourist sites that you're going to see anywhere. If you go to Rome, you're probably going to want to at least walk past the Colosseum, but maybe you're really interested in, pasta making in Italy and you book that. Singapore is the same kind of thing. We had some big highlight stuff that we wanted to see, like the Marina Bay Sands Hotel and the Super Tree Grove and the light shows and some of their museums and the Merlion Park, really iconic stuff in Singapore. But I also really wanted to do things that like Singaporeans do for fun, like go out for afternoon tea, or it's really popular to get a reflexology foot massage in Singapore. So of course I had to try that. Just things like that I was able to, even with this guy's, he talked about sometimes places to go, but YouTube was really one of my best resources because Singapore is not a place that's heavily traveled in the US. And so there's not as much resources if, say, you're going to Europe out there. And so for really current, really like what's happening right now, YouTube ended up being one of my best resources. Obviously, I still use places like Reddit for information and just standard, good old Google was really helpful. Google Maps, believe it or not, I would find really cool stuff by just scanning Google Maps and be like, oh, that looks interesting. Click on that. What is it?
I love planning a trip by scrolling through Google Maps and hitting the want to go to, plan to go to. Like I will book a whole trip and then if you don't have a plan for that day, you just open up and you're like, what's nearby?
Yeah, no, I literally have a list in my planning. I kind of do things by neighborhoods because I hate to go back and forth too much if I don't have to. And I had lists of what's in this neighborhood that I should see? Where should I eat if I'm in this neighborhood? And I would go back and resource that quite a bit while we were in Singapore.
Did you stay in the same hotel the entire time?
We did. We booked a hotel just a little bit out of city center. Singapore is connected by a great, great, great public transportation system. It is super cheap, really efficient, and it can get you just about anywhere in the country. Singapore is a city and a country. It's not super huge. And so the train system really can get you just about anywhere for a couple of bucks. And so we wanted to stay in a place that was just a little bit removed from the really main tourist center. And we wanted a place that was more like an apartment because we were there for a week. It gave us a kitchen. It allowed us to hit up the grocery store and do a little bit of cooking on our own. And it was absolutely a great place to stay. We were in walking distance of just about everything if we wanted to walk. And if we didn't want to walk, we were, 8 minutes from a train station. We were able to easily hop on a train and go to anywhere that we wanted to visit.
Well, why don't you go ahead and give us just a couple of your big highlights from Singapore?
Oh, man, picking highlights is really hard on a trip like this. I think our first day, we started out with something that's pretty iconic in Singapore, but not that you would know it's iconic. And Singapore, because of the fact that it's a small island, they use their resources really smartly, and they build a lot of public accessible free gardens on top of buildings. So you might have a public garden 57 stories up in a building, and you can go visit this. And that was literally the first thing we did once we woke up in Singapore after we had an iconic breakfast of kaya toast, which is like the national breakfast of Singapore, which was amazing, is we went to this sky garden. And it gave us a couple of things. One, we got to go to something that Singaporeans use and access themselves personally all the time, which is these gardens in the sky for, natural resources and like places to be outside. And it also gave us a kind of a bird's eye view of Singapore. So we got to orient ourselves. We get to see where we were. We get to see where we were going to be. We could even try to see if we could see where the ship might park in a few days. It was just really kind of an iconic way to start the trip for us and something I highly recommend. The garden we went to is Capita Springs Sky Garden. It requires tickets, but they're free and you just have to book ahead of time, which was great. We were able to plan a little bit ahead, know when we wanted to get there. It also gave us a good excuse to get up early the first morning and try to get ourselves going on the Singapore time zone because it's a big time zone shift from coming from the US. And so it was a great way to start the day. And then, man, at the end of that day, we did another really kind of iconic thing in Singapore is we went and saw the Spectra Light Show, which is this big light show done in front of the Marina Bay Sands or the MBS Hotel. And it's kind of like World of Color without the characters. And it was just like the best way to start the city. We saw, or like start our trip to the city. We saw the gardens. We saw all this cool stuff, from the sky, kind of oriented ourselves. And then we're able to end the day with a just super cool light show that highlights some of the cool technology in Singapore. I'd say some of the other really sort of iconic and just have to do stuff we did was we went to the Cloud Forest, which is calling it a conservatory in a dome feels really small. This is just a massive, massive man-made cloud forest or rainforest, basically, in a dome. And to make it just a little bit sweeter and worth your visit, currently they have it decorated as Jurassic Park. So there's dinosaurs all throughout this forest. There's multi-story waterfalls that you get to walk up and around several times a day. They do this misting, and the misting creates clouds that you literally surround you inside this. That's why it's called the Cloud Forest. And that is absolutely must visit in Singapore. It's also a really big benefit that it's indoors because Singapore is a warm tropical climate that rains almost every day in the afternoon, kind of like going to Disney World in Florida. And so a lot of afternoons you have to sort of plan for a little bit of a rain shower. And this was a great place for us to go while it was pouring rain outside because it was covered and it was cool. And cool is a really important thing in Singapore because Singapore is warm. I don't know that I was prepared for how warm Singapore was, and you have to take that into account as you're planning to tour around. You are going to need breaks throughout the day. You cannot just gun this outside for 9 hours a day. You will not survive it, no matter how used to heat and humidity you are. This was just at a next level from anything we've ever experienced. And so that made it really like a cool place to cool off and get some indoor time. Other things that I would say if you're in Singapore and you have to see before you leave Singapore is probably gardens by the bay. All of this stuff is kind of in the same area, and it seems like I'm talking about a lot of nature, but Singapore is really into integrating nature into like its whole system in the city. So the city has got this fantastical architecture. You see buildings that you don't even think should like exist, and how are they built and how are they functioning, and they're so cool to look at. And then there'll be these awesome gardens, and I think Gardens by the Bay is kind of Central Park with some cool futuristic additions to it. They have these things called the Super Tree Grove, which are these really multi-story trees that are built out of metal but covered in plants, and you can even go up in a couple of them and look around for a small fee, which is totally worth doing. We did the walk that lets you go between the trees, and the views were stunning. It was so cool to see these. And to top it all off, at night, they turn these trees into like a twinkly light show with set to different music. And it was such a cool thing to see. And then we got to walk around their natural gardens that are there and see a bunch of wildlife. We saw really cool birds. We saw a lizard that's the size of a small dog. It was just kind of one of those places that if you're in Singapore, even for just a couple of days, everybody kind of goes. And it's easy to see why. It's definitely worth your time to go out of the way and see this garden. So that was kind of like some of the highlights of some of the stuff we did in Singapore. And I feel like I can't talk about Singapore without talking about the food. The food in Singapore is a highlight, bar none. Whether you want to eat a $3 meal at the Hawker Center or you want to eat a super expensive omakase custom meal, you can do it all in Singapore. They cater to dietary restrictions pretty well. You might not be able to find a restaurant that does it. Like every restaurant will not cater to everything, but you're probably going to be able to find what you want as long as you do your research ahead of time. People might remember I'm a vegetarian. Jason is not. We were able to eat at, I've never seen so many vegetarian or vegetarian friendly restaurants in one small area at once. I was able to eat vegetarian sashimi. I was able to eat vegetarian Singapore classic dishes that usually have meat in them. We were able to get really inexpensive food just about anywhere we wanted in the city. And man, the food is just so good. I'm still craving some of those dishes really bad right now being at home. And then, of course, like always, we definitely hit up a bunch of grocery stores and filled up on all the goodies we could find there too. So Singapore is a place where you have to go and try the food, and it's super easy to do. And one of the benefits for people who might be a little concerned about traveling to Singapore and worried about how they're going to get around is one of the national languages in Singapore is English. So English is spoken prevalently, widely. It's really easy to communicate with just about everybody. All the signs are going to be in English, as well as several other national languages, but it made it really easy. I mean, if I went to a restaurant and ordered, I could order in English. The menus were usually in English. And if they weren't, they had an English menu. It was just a super easy way to try a whole host of different types of foods all over the city. You can have basically anything you want in Singapore.
Well, what an amazing week you had to start off before you get on the adventure. You guys went to the sands. Did you try the iconic Singapore sling? I've heard mixed reviews at times.
So no, we did not try a Singapore sling at the Marina Bay Sands. The really iconic one is at the Raffles Hotel. We did go to the Raffles Hotel.
That's it. I'm sorry. With the Raffles. Man, I missed that one up.
We did go to the Raffles. We did walk past it. We did walk in it. But the Singapore sling is like everywhere, and you can try them anywhere you want. I don't drink alcohol, but you can definitely get a Singapore sling without the alcohol at some places. I've had one before, and it wasn't a top priority for me to have a Singapore sling in Singapore. But you can definitely do that. I think a lot of people do. I think they even serve them on the flight going over, so you can get that taken care of before you've even landed.
It's like the Mai Tai going to Hawaii. So, wow. Well, should we jump on the ship, Lake? We got a lot to talk about there. So you guys are down in the central, or just outside the central district of Singapore. I'm not sure exactly where the port was, but how was it getting to the port? Did you guys book a private transportation? Was there rideshare options?
All right, so you're probably not going to walk there from the city center, but there's some really easy transportation options. Disney does provide Disney transportation if you booked your hotel through Disney. I don't think it's necessary at all in Singapore. You can also take the MRT, which is the public transportation train. It drops you somewhere between a quarter and a half mile from the actual ship port area, but there's a covered walkway and a sidewalk that you can roll your bags right down to the port. I saw lots and lots of people doing this. Again, the MRT allows luggage. It's pretty simple. But, for me, when I'm hauling bags, even if, it's just a few, I don't really want to deal with all of that. And so we opted to take a taxi. I thought that was the easiest option. It was pretty reasonable. We were able to get one straight from our hotel. You could get one straight from the airport and go right to the port. It's super simple to do. The prices are pretty reasonable. There is also rideshare. Their version of Uber is called Grab, and you can book that. You do have to have accounts, and there's a little bit of nitty gritty for setting one up from the US. It's not quite super simple, but if you want to do it, you can. But don't feel like it's a must do. You can use a taxi. We used taxis a couple times throughout our trip. We were always able to pay through credit card. It was really easy to do. And if you just need to get to the port and you're hauling multiple suitcases, you might as well just book a taxi and get dropped right off at the port and get onto the ship. Much easier than having to walk a half mile in 80-degree weather hauling bags down a sidewalk. That just didn't really appeal to me.
Well, an inaugural sailing in a brand new port, what was it like kind of going through the embarkation process in Singapore?
All right, so it was kind of fun because the ship had been in and out of port on and off throughout our trip. So we were able to see it from a distance for the week we were there. So the excitement had really built by the time we were driving up in the taxi. And I was so excited. And I couldn't wait to see this gigantic ship. I've only ever cruised on the Magic and the Wonder. And so getting on something this big was just going to be a once in a lifetime, first time experience. We were so excited. And we pull up in the taxi to the cruise terminal. and you couldn't see the ship. Like, not at all. Like, not even a little. And so I'm like, well, we'll definitely see it as we go through the process. It turns out you really won't see the ship as you go through the process if you arrive by taxi. You will see like glimpses of the ship, but you just won't see the ship. So that sort of surprised me, because normally you can kind of like get a glimpse, see this great huge thing you're going to go to, and you really can't coming into this port the way it's designed. Going through embarkation on a maiden voyage, we sort of prepped ourselves for it not to go smoothly and it to be a little chaotic. And it went really smooth, honestly. It was pretty seamless. One thing I thought was interesting, and I don't know going forward, I think I'm going to say this phrase a few times during the podcast, but this was the maiden voyage and the second cruise. What happened for us changed even between these two cruises, and I think going forward, what we experienced may or may not be what people experience as they tweak and figure things out. But one thing that I thought was interesting is we never received mailed luggage tags. You're used to getting on a Disney cruise, they send you the luggage tags ahead of time, you attach them to your bags. The way they did it for this cruise is when you went to drop off your bags, first thing, they checked you in with a little handheld computer, printed out your name and stateroom, and attached a printed luggage tag for however many bags you had that they printed right then and there out of a little like pocket machine. And it just like printed out the sticky tag, they tied it on, and you went. So that was definitely different because I was a little stressed. I mean, I know you can always get luggage tags when you get there, but we went all the way to Singapore and had no luggage tags for this maiden voyage. I'm like, well, I hope our bags get on. It would be, kind of nice to have some clothes throughout the trip. And it went seamlessly. You go through all the normal securities and check-ins. And before we knew it, we had a pretty early arrival time, but we were not the first group. And by the time we got through the whole process, we were already able to walk right on the ship. They walked us, down all the gangways, and there we were. We were on the Disney adventure. It was like we blinked and suddenly we were on the ship. It went so fast, and I didn't even have time to really take in the fact that we were loading ourselves on the Disney adventure. A lot of times I think that happens for people. It definitely happens for us, that you're trying to go through all the steps, next step, next step, next step. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm on. How did this happen? And we were just so thrilled to have stepped foot. I mean, I know there was a couple of previews, but really we were the first people to officially step foot on the ship, and it still had new ship smell. Like, how cool is that to get on a ship that had new ship smell? I know we didn't book the maiden voyage. It wasn't our goal. But since this was what we were, the cards we were dealt, we decided to embrace the fact that we were on the maiden voyage and just enjoy it for what it was, which was the first time that official guests could sail on this ship. So we were super excited when we stepped on board.
Where do they bring you on?
Okay, so when they bring you on board, they bring you on, I believe it's deck 7. And the way this ship is designed, I think a lot of people might know this, but if you don't, this ship was not designed from the ground up by Disney. This was sort of a retrofitted, partially built ship. And I think you have to go in knowing that. I think that's important to know, because you are not going to have some of the iconic Disney Cruise Line experiences you think you know and expect and love. It doesn't mean it's not going to be great, but you're not going to have some of those same moments. And one of the moments you're not going to have is when you get on the ship, there is no grand atrium reveal. It's not that you get on a different floor, it's that it doesn't exist. There is no a grand atrium reveal on this ship. It's just not on the ship. And so they load you in, I believe it was deck 7, and you walk down the outside, which is sort of the lifeboat area, the sort of the deck 4 equivalent to the Magic, and then you walk in a door and you're just sort of in a stair lobby. And another thing for both of our cruises, again, I feel like I'm going to say this, but when we cruised, our cruises did not have the name your family welcome. They had people greeting you as you came in and waving, but that iconic, say the Disney welcome with your family's name didn't happen. Maybe because there's no atrium, maybe because they're loading a massive amount of people on the ship and it would just take too long. I don't know the reasoning, but if you're waiting and looking for that, it's not there. If you're good with skipping it, it was kind of a bonus, because then you just got right on the ship. When you get on in the aft section of the ship, I believe, and you're just sort of on. We stood there and we were like, well, now what? I'm on this massive ship. Where do I go? What do I do? There's plenty of crew to assist you, but I just sort of stood there for a minute and went, well, what do we do? And then, common sense took over. And because this was the maiden voyage, our room was already ready. And so we beelined it to our stateroom to drop off our carry-on bags. So that was sort of our introduction, was trying to figure out how to get to our stateroom from this lobby in the middle of the ship and where to go. Because this ship, at least to us, from our experience coming from the magic and wonder, was huge. And it definitely was an adventure, pun intended, I guess, just to find our stateroom in the ship.
Well, why don't you go ahead and roll with the staterooms and tell us a little bit about both staterooms you had booked and what you thought of them.
So for our maiden voyage, we booked a midship deluxe ocean view stateroom with veranda. This stateroom is going to be exactly equivalent to a standard veranda stateroom, I think, on any Disney ship. I think overall it was probably just a smidge smaller than some of the staterooms on the Magic and the Wonder, like the standard veranda. But it wasn't so significantly small that I went, wow, this is really different. It was just, you could notice a few little things that were different. Overall, the layout was the same. You had the same split bath. You had the same bed, then couch set up with the veranda at the end. We booked an ocean view veranda, which meant we looked out over the ocean. That seems pretty obvious, but on this ship, unlike any other Disney ship, there are also veranda rooms that look interior on the ship, and you can actually look out into some of the interior outdoor spaces, which is a totally new thing for a Disney ship specifically. And we really considered one of those rooms because we thought, well, if we're going to be on this brand new ship with these new room types, maybe we want to book one of these interior verandas. It seems like something really cool to do. And we debated this on and off a lot before our cruise. And we ended up deciding with the ocean view. And I want to talk about why, because I think after cruising, it's really important to understand what you're getting. The ocean view looks out on the ocean. It's going to be a little bit quieter. It's going to be a little bit more private and peaceful. And those interior veranda rooms look out at other interior veranda rooms, and they look out over areas that are used for shows and activities, which is really cool because you can watch a show and activity from your room, but it also means you can hear and see multiple of the same show and activities from your room throughout the day. Now, they try to be respectful of that, and no shows are run at like 3 a.m., but this is also a public area of a ship, and anybody could be walking through that area at 3 a.m. and suddenly decide to have their toddler yell and scream. And they can do that in a hallway, but this is just a much bigger area. And so, although we really wanted one of those cool new rooms, I don't think we regretted for a minute after walking around and exploring the ship having a veranda that looked out over the ocean, because one of our goals is always to have a nice, quiet room to go back to kind of decompress and relax. And so that was what we booked on our first cruise.
That's a really good point, because I've heard that we have not sailed on a bigger ship like that with the indoor spaces, but just buyer beware if you book one of the inner ones, some of the things that come with it. Some people love it, and then some people, like probably our family, same with yours, Laurne, we'd like to have the quiet of being able to see the ocean.
Yeah. And then so for our second cruise, thanks to all of the rearranging and us booking the second cruise, we decided, when we were watching the ship be built from Disney or redone from Disney, we kind of talked about these concierge rooms looked really cool, honestly. And we were, just like sky talk dreaming, like, well, if we were ever going to do concierge, this is the ship we were going to do it on. But we were only doing one cruise, and we originally did not have a concierge room booked. And when we booked the second one, we just kind of decided if we were going to do it, this was going to be the one time. This was the one cruise we felt like it would be maybe worth the extra cost to do it. And so we booked a concierge family stateroom with ocean view veranda. And this sounds like it's just a veranda room with concierge benefits, but this was kind of not the case, which was why we were convinced to book it. The basic lowest tier concierge room on the Disney Adventure at the time of our booking was more like a suite. All right, this room had 2 doors. We had 2 stateroom doors with 2 stateroom numbers. So we could each go in and out a separate door, and our keys worked on both doors. It was so funny. It has, the way it's designed, it is not like another Disney stateroom. I'm sure if people have cruised on other ships from other companies, maybe rooms are more like this, but I've only cruised on Disney, and I've only cruised on the classic ships, so I had nothing to compare it to. And so you go in one of your 2 doors. If you go in your main door, you walk into this stateroom, and basically as soon as you just come in, there's a connecting door. It looks like it's to a connecting room, but it's open in this case. You can close it, but it's generally open. And that connecting room is the second room that you have access to from an outside door. And this is basically, I called it a single supplement room. It's a bed with, I think it's a double. It's definitely not a place that, unless you really like who you're sharing the bed with, you want to put two people. It's not a huge bed. And the bed is head to feet touching the walls. And so the person on the backside would literally have to crawl over people to get out of the bed. There's no foot or head space at this bed. There's just kind of you come in on the one side of the bed. But you do have a room that has a door that closes, and it also has its own small bathroom. And it was kind of interesting because the main room was super well, like, higher end decorations and materials used. And this side room was sort of like, wah, wah. Jason called the bathroom the hospital bathroom. He said it looked like a bathroom you'd use in a hospital, and he was kind of right. And so that was this side room. As you continue down this hall, it's kind of a long hall, to be honest, the way they've designed this room. You first come to a door on your left, and that door goes into the main bathroom. You continue on just sort of angled a little bit to the right in our case, and you come to a living room, which has a couch, a TV, and sort of the standard Disney, I'll call it the like desk prep area. It's got your hair dryer, it's got a little desk for your computer. And as you are exiting that hallway to, in our case, the left, there was a kitchenette. So it had like a bar sink, it had the mini fridge, it had the coffee station. I guess that's something I didn't talk about is every stateroom, regardless, on the Disney Cruise Line for the first time that I know for Disney Cruise Line had a coffee and tea station in every room. So you had coffee and tea and a kettle for hot water for doing pour over coffee, which was super awesome. That was all in this little kitchenette area on this concierge. It's also where they would drop off like all of your information and papers and tip envelopes and things in this area. And then you went sort of kitty corner to all of this. You went into the bedroom. It wasn't a door, it was a curtain. So you technically don't have a door to the bedroom, but you have a way to close it off. And that means, unlike any room I've stayed in that's a standard room on a Disney cruise ship, the bedroom was very far away from the hallway in this ship, which I think became a huge benefit when we kind of talk about staying in these rooms, was that this bedroom was removed from the hallway and could be shut off because the bathroom is in front of it towards the hall. And so you also had an access to the bathroom from this main bedroom area, and it had a king size bed, which made me very, very, very happy. And then the bathroom is a full size bathroom. It is huge. It is not a split bath. It is not a Disney standard bath. This was big. I think it was bigger than my bathroom at home, to be really honest. And then to top it all off, because this room is extra wide with the bedroom and the living room both facing the outside sea view, you have an extra long balcony. Now, they don't do anything special. You don't have any special chairs. You have the two standard deck chairs and a table. But it was super cool to have this like panoramic wide view of the ocean, both from the bedroom and the living room, and you could exit through the living room out onto this extended balcony. And so that alone was what got us to book concierge, was having this like super huge room at more of a standard concierge price, which is still pricier than a regular room. But in this case, we felt like we got value for that because we didn't just upgrade our toiletries and bedding. When we upgraded to concierge, we basically got almost double the space.
That sounds pretty amazing. We can't go through all the different room options, but just kind of looking at them as you were talking there, Laurne, there are a lot of different options on the ship compared to what everybody knows back here in the States with the classic Magic and Wish Dream class ships. I'm losing them all now. We're getting so many of them. Well, let's jump into the ship itself. It's a massive ship. There's 7 different themed areas. A lot. You showed me some of the pictures you sent from all the different areas from San Francisco to everything else. We could probably get lost talking about all the different ones. Give us a couple highlights of areas of the ships that you guys enjoyed spending time in, and maybe how they were a little bit different than the Magic or the Wonder, or if it felt any different than the Magic and the Wonder.
It absolutely felt different. From top to bottom, the ship is different. Talking to people on the ship, some people didn't like the ship because it was so different and they wanted or expected a classic Disney ship. One of the big reasons we wanted to sail on this ship was the fact that it was different. We love the classic ships. Love it. It's our home. We know where everything's at. We know our way around. But we thought, man, the puns are just ridiculous with this. But we thought it would be such an adventure to sail on the adventure. We thought it would be so fun to have a completely different experience, explore new things, see new things, do a bunch of stuff that Disney's never done on a ship before, that they kind of were sort of forced into doing because of retrofitting a ship versus designing it from the start. So they had to work with what was there and they had to Disneyfy it, which we wanted to see how they did that. And it was super, super cool. So this ship is just, it's massive. I don't even know how to say it other than massive, but you have to take that into account. You cannot just quickly get from one end to the other on this ship and quickly get between decks. It's going to take you a few minutes to figure out where you're going. It's going to take you a bit to orient yourself. And unlike other Disney ships, not every floor connects forward to aft. Most do, but not everyone does. And that makes trying to figure out your way around a little bit more challenging. One of the first areas we went to, because everybody was talking about this, one of the things you might remember is I don't like spoilers. I don't want to know if I'm going to a new Disney park, a new ride. I don't look at videos. I don't look at pictures. Obviously, with this being a brand new ship, there wasn't a lot of spoilers out there, but there's, a little bit of information, and I'm okay with information. One of the areas everybody was excited about, and so were we, was San Francisco. So it was one of the first places we went on the ship as we were trying to orient ourselves and walk around. We kind of did a walk around the first day just to sort of learn where things were at and how to get around the ship. And San Francisco is from Big Hero 6, and this area is all indoors. There's no sea views, there's no portholes, and so you're completely contained. And they made a theme park themed area. It is so just next level cool. It was just, there's no words. They designed it to look like you're walking down the streets of San Francisco. There's fake restaurants that you can see and look in the windows. There's an arcade that's completely complimentary. I had to ask a cast member. Because they say tap your key to play, and I'm like, so how much is it to play each game? No, it's just to make sure that you're not hogging a machine and that everybody gets to play. It's totally complimentary to play all these games. It's so fun, and they're all themed. They're games that are themed to Big Hero 6. There's an interactive family. They have, I don't remember the name of it, hero training, and you get to go in this glass room and work as a family to compete against each other and with each other to do this hero training from Big Hero 6. And it's all running and jumping with this screen on the floor is just so much fun. And it's so different from anything on any Disney ship. And you kind of wind around these different ones. At the far end of San Francisco is the movie theaters. The movie theaters are different on this ship because it's 4 theaters instead of 1, and they're a little bit smaller. And so they can run multiple movies at once. So there's always a couple of movies showing. And then the other really cool thing, although, I wasn't able to necessarily use it very much, is they have the Vibe and the Edge teen clubs kind of off the San Francisco area. So the entrances to the clubs are right in San Francisco. I mean, what a cool place if you're going to go to the Edge or the Vibe to go down to San Francisco and go in your little special club. It is just the coolest area.
Sounds pretty incredible. What other areas kind of stood out to you?
So another one of the areas that was brand new for this ship, which was one of the places we kind of beeline to see, was something they call the Imagination Garden. And I'm going to do my best to sort of explain how this works on this ship. From deck 10 to deck 17 and 18, which are sort of the main open decks on this ship, they have cut out a section of the ship and you can look straight down. So it's kind of like you're looking down from a balcony of a hotel into a lobby, except the sky is the top instead of the roof, and downward are those rooms that have the interior verandas. And this looks out over a big garden that they've made into, they use it really cleverly. So it's a garden. It has some natural elements in it. It has that iconic, you may have seen a picture of the castle at sea. It's just a really cool art piece that's in this area. It has a Mickey statue in here that's kind of like a topiary. It also steps down into deck 10 from deck 11, so it's multi-tiered, and they use it as a show venue for different shows throughout the ship, which are outdoors. I mean, it's so cool. It's just a cool place. And they have some of the quick service restaurants, which is also brand new for Disney, is they have, normally you have deck pool food and you have main dining restaurants and those and a buffet, and those are kind of your options. This ship has an additional section, which we just referred to as quick service. I don't know what Disney actually refers to it to, but quick service accurately displays what it is. You walk into the restaurant, you order your food, and you sit down at a table after you've picked up your food at the end of walking through a quick service order, except you don't pay. It's included in your cruise fare. So you get to go to different restaurants with different food themes. So they have one that's themed to Moana, which is sort of like poke bowl type of food. They have one that's themed to Mowgli from Jungle Book, which is Indian dishes. They have one that's themed to, is that Miss Marvel? I always think the young Captain Marvel. That's themed to, it's called Cosmic Kebabs. And so it's themed to like kebabs, and that's where the shawarma is. And it's just a really cool place to eat. And they do all of this in these like little garden rooms. And there's multiple sections of these open rooms throughout the ship. The ship is so long that they have, I believe, 3 of these, if I'm remembering correctly, with different kind of themes, different things that are happening in them. And this was just so cool because we've never seen anything like this. We've never been on a ship that had anything like this. And this was just one of the coolest areas. And Disney used it for a lot of stuff. So you spent a lot of time in this section of the Disney adventure throughout your cruise, just by way of if you wanted to do big shows or activities. This is where you were going. I probably spent more time in this part of the ship than I did probably almost anywhere else in the ship, just by way of activities and things going on. And if you wanted quick service food, you were going into this section of the ship.
Was the quick service open so that you could do that instead of dining if you wanted to do that instead?
It was, and it was super popular. This was definitely something I experienced different on this ship. Is dinner is still your rotational dining. They have multiple restaurants, and you will not see all of the restaurants on a 3 or 4 day cruise. It is not possible. They say they have 6. They kind of really have 7. It's a little strange because one of the restaurants has 2 dining rooms and they're connected, but not really. It's just the way the ship was designed. It's just a little different. And so you get assigned a random section of them. They call them like sister restaurants, so they're a similar theme. Because we did 2 cruises, we specifically asked one of those concierge benefits on our second cruise to do a different rotation, so we saw different restaurants. And I'm here to tell you, the shows, at least in some of the restaurants, might be similar, but they are not the same in any way. So it was really fun to like change restaurants. So whichever one you get, you are getting the same menus as its sister restaurant. The food doesn't change, but the show and the atmosphere definitely do. But it was really interesting during our dining is that the 2 differences I noticed. One is that the tables are generally much bigger. People on these cruises were traveling a lot more in multi-generational families than I've seen before on a Disney cruise. And so tables were a standard 6, 8, 10. Like there were way less 4. And I don't know that I ever saw an actual 2 top. The smallest you could sit at was a 4 top that I ever saw. That wasn't just in like the quick service areas, but in the main dining room. And there might have been some 2s and I just didn't see them. But generally, most of your tables were bigger and most people were dining in multi-generational families. And I also noticed a lot of people didn't go to dinner. The maiden voyage was not full. Our second cruise started over spring break in Singapore and it was basically sold out. And even on the sold out cruises, dinner had empty tables everywhere. And we chose to skip dinner a couple nights just to try some other stuff and do some other things. And what we noticed was when we skipped dinner and went to the quick service restaurants, they were packed. They were so full at dinner. People were not doing rotational dining and they were choosing to go to these quick service restaurants instead. And I got to say, this is one of those growing pains, I think, for Disney a little bit, is they're going to have to figure out how to handle those crowds because I don't think they were prepared for them because these quick service restaurants do not sit a lot of people and there's not a lot of space of tables even outside. And so every time we would get food, we would have to try to find a table or try to go like hunt down a place outside. And it wasn't always easy to find a place to actually put our food. And Disney kind of knew this because they even had signs in the restaurants that basically said, please eat and get out. Like, don't hang out, please. They said it very nicely, but they're like, the gist was, please eat and get out because we don't have room for everybody to hang out in here because they just don't. And so it was a big difference. And it was really nice. I mean, back in the day, Disney used to have cabanas open for dinner on the ships, and everybody really misses that. And while they still don't have a cabanas equivalent open for dinner on the ships, they do have these quick service, and they're basically open 10 to 10 every day. And they are utilized 10 to 10 every single day. On the maiden voyage, they actually had us doing reservations. They were free, but they were done in the app to get quick service times. The second cruise, they went back to just queuing. I think they're trying to figure out what works. And so I don't know that they've even necessarily settled on that, but they're trying to figure out how to handle that situation because I don't know that was something that was obvious before getting on was going to be quite as popular as it was.
Let's keep running with the dining room then. What were your highlights? And you don't have to go through all of them, but which ones did you guys really enjoy?
So yeah, the main dining was really interesting. I wish I could tell you I saw every restaurant, but like I said, we kind of skipped a few, not intentionally one night. One night we just got distracted because it was our second cruise and we were leaving Singapore. and the sunset was gorgeous, and we were on our way to dinner. We had every intention of going to dinner, and we just did it. We didn't make it, which was great because this was a cruise where if you just decided to not go, you had a ton of other dining options. So it gave a lot more flexibility, which we loved. We thought that was a great addition to cruising. But the dining rotations, I think they do an animators. They call it animators palette and animators table. We went to table. I saw palette. It's pretty similar. They do sort of the standard what you expect drawing dinner. If you've been on a cruise before, I never want to spoil anything for anybody, but if you've been on a cruise before and you do the drawing dinner, this was the drawing dinner. It had a menu that was somewhat similar to what you expect in Animator's Palette. All the menus there was items on every menu that I've seen on other Disney cruises before. There were things I recognized. There were dishes. I was like, yep, nope, I've definitely had that. And then every menu also had some new things to them. They tried to sort of blend a mix of classic Western cuisine, sort of, I called it classic, basic Asian cuisine, and sort of an Indian section on every menu for the main dining. Those were your choices at every dinner. And so the menu definitely had some variety and some new dishes and some things to try. And that was really fun to have some kind of brand new choices. There's the Hollywood one, and there's the Hollywood Spotlight and Navigators Club. I believe that's what they're called. And they're the sister restaurants to each other. And they have like grand finale show where some friends appear. And we went to the first one on our first cruise and loved it. It was like Roaring 20s themed, and it was really fun, and it was a cool show. This restaurant has some of the pillar problems we've come to know and love from being on a ship dining. We were sat behind a pillar, and we could only see part of the show, but we were totally okay with that, and it was still a good show. It's mostly music-based, so you weren't missing a ton of visuals by having a pillar in your face. And then when we went to that sister restaurant on the second cruise, it was our last night on the ship, and we were really excited to kind of have this as the grand finale to us leaving because it's a fun show. We had seen it before, and we went into the sister restaurant, and it was a completely different show. Like the only similarities were some of the people who visited you during the show. Everything was different, and wow, what a surprise. And I was like, man, if you only get to visit one of those, you are totally missing like one of the cool shows. Either one is great. I love both. I don't know that I could pick one versus the other, but it was kind of a big surprise because like this gives you a reason to come back and cruise again, because if you haven't done that rotation, you haven't seen that show. And then it made me curious if the other Animator's Palette, which we did skip, has a different show. I'm like, well, now I want to know because we didn't experience it. And I just assumed it was the same drawing show. And it probably is, because I feel like that's kind of an iconic thing that people won't want to miss, but maybe it's not. And I thought that was a really cool like addition to cruising on the adventure is dinner is different. It's not the standard same old menus and the standard same old rotations where everybody's doing the same thing. So we really enjoyed that part of cruising on the Disney Adventure.
What did you guys do for lunches and breakfast then?
So lunches and breakfasts have some of the same similarities you've come to know and love from Disney Cruise Line. You can get your scrambled eggs, you can get your hash browns, you can get your Mickey churro waffles, you can get your pancakes, all at the Cabana's equivalent, which is Pixar Market, which is huge. If you're going to Pixar for breakfast or lunch and you plan to meet your family, you better have a meeting spot. Because if you're just like, I'll go in and find them, you'll be in there forever. We actually, on accident, walked the entire restaurant and got lost walking through the entire restaurant. It's that big. We didn't realize we were walking through the entire one, and we went, I think we just circled. It's like a U-shaped that covers the entire back section of Deck 17, and it's huge. And so they have multiple buffets in here. And man, it's sort of mirrored. Each half of the ship has the same thing, but the multiple buffets on each side have a little different stuff. And again, they did a really cool thing where they blended. It wasn't just, the same stuff we've always seen on the breakfast and lunch buffet. They had totally new dishes, blending all of the cuisines together, which was great. I got to eat. It was one of the things we were most excited about cruising out of Singapore. We were really hoping for different and new food, and we totally got that. And it was really good, and it was pretty awesome. And then you would go down to a couple of decks to another buffet that they set up for breakfast and lunch. And we didn't get to those buffets till our second cruise. And what we noticed was there was totally different food on these lower deck buffets than there was on this main kind of Cabana's equivalent on the back of Deck 17. These are the Olaf and the Maximus dining rooms. And these are a little different because the way they design these, they're in the main thoroughfare of the ship. So when there's not a dinner service, even during breakfast and lunch, you end up walking. If you're walking, I think it's Deck 6. This is how big this ship is. I don't even remember what deck stuff is on, and I would do this walking around the ships regularly. Like, wait, we're trying to go here. What deck is that on? Those dining rooms are walk-through. Like, if you want to get from the front to the back of the ship, you have to walk through these dining rooms. So it's a little bit strange. But the buffets were more Asian and Indian inspired, and you wouldn't find a lot of Western cuisine in these buffets. And so we started eating in those the second cruise to try totally different food again. And it was just super fun to have so many choices. Obviously, this ship just holds a lot more people than any Disney ship has previously. And that means they have to have a lot more options for dining just to feed that amount of people. And so as a cruiser, it's a total plus because you get more choices and more variety. And I don't matter how many meals I ate and how many times I went back to the buffet, I could not have tried everything, even in a back-to-back cruise that was on this ship to eat. Of course, there is Wheezy's Freezies, which is the included soft serve. And I definitely hit up that section a few times on the cruise. I'm here to say the flavors for our 2 cruises were vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. Pretty classic. There was no special flavors. I was a little sad because I always loved that they changed the flavors on the cruises every day and there was no changing for these. But it was your same standard classic soft serve Disney ice cream. They had some upgraded cones on our cruise. I don't know if that's standard or they ran out of the regular ones because they started with the regular ones, but the upgraded cones were awesome.
Did you do any of the specialty dining?
So we originally booked 2 specialty dinings. We booked both of them at Mike and Sully's. And we were really excited about this. I'm a vegetarian. Jason isn't. We confirmed with Disney Shoreside because there was no menus when we were leading up to this cruise, right? There's nothing listed. They don't tell you what's going to be on them. But we confirmed multiple times that they would be able to accommodate a vegetarian option. And when we got on board the ship, I just kind of did my due diligence and went to confirm once again that they could handle the fact that I was vegetarian because these are a set menu. And it turns out, at least currently, they cannot. They cannot make adjustments to the set menu, which was really disappointing. And I think if I had just known that ahead of time, it would have been fine. And to be honest, it didn't look like it was a super popular place that was used a ton. I know they have a sushi restaurant that's attached to that. Mike and Sully's has like 4 different dining rooms with different themes and meals in each one. And the sushi one is supposed to be like this outdoor area. And I got to tell you, every time I walk past there, at least in our experience, nobody was at it. Nobody seemed to be using the premium dining. It did not seem super popular on our cruise. And maybe that's just, our impression and it really was all sold out and it's just that small of a venue. But it just didn't seem like it was highly used on our cruise. And maybe that's just because they were the first couple and people were excited to try the standard menus. I don't know. But we had planned to try it and didn't. So I think that's just something to be aware of in the booking process right now is at least for now, really check if they can handle any dietary restrictions or issues you have in that specialty dining because at least currently they couldn't for Mike and Sully's.
Well, why don't we go ahead and jump into kind of activities and entertainment that you partook in around the ship?
I know everybody wants to hear about and is the thing we were the most excited about. This is the first Disney ship with rides. Right? Like it had rides. How cool was that? We were so excited to go on a ship and go on the rides. And we got to experience 2 of the rides on our ship. We got to experience the PIM Quantum Racers, and we got to experience the Galaxy Spin. It has a longer name. But the idea is the PIM Quantum Racers is kind of like Autotopia cars, but not on an Autotopia track. It's a really small, just circle track. And you get in this tiny little car and you drive it around, and it goes like nothing. Like the speed is nothing. And it shouldn't be as fun as it was, but I think the novelty of driving a tiny little car and a tiny little like circle on the top of a ship at sea as it's moving was just really fun. And then the other one is Dumbo, but Guardians of the Galaxy themed. And it was fun. It goes up and down. It spins around. We enjoyed both. They used a combination of reservations, free reservations in the app during the day during our cruises. And then they had an open period every night from 5 to 9 p.m. where it was just queued up. And at both times, I think with a little bit of due diligence, it was pretty easy to get on the ride. All that booking on the app stuff I'm talking about is done day of on the cruise. It is not done pre-cruise. So you can't be planning your rides, 30 days out. This is once you get on board. And the roller coaster. Everybody wants to ride the roller coaster. Unfortunately for us, on both of our cruises, the roller coaster was not yet operational. So we did not experience the roller coaster. I don't know when it's going to be operational. I'm not sure Disney knows when it's going to be operational. And we were a little disappointed. That was a little bit of a stab to the heart. We were really excited to do the first Disney roller coaster at sea. We had 2 cruises. We thought definitely we're going to be able to fit it in. We'll get on it at least once, and we didn't. So I guess something to go back for.
You guys travel, obviously, you guys don't have any kids. So how did you spend your evenings? Like, did you go to the shows, or are there other different shows going on in the evenings? Kind of maybe attack it that way.
All right. So there are a lot of great shows on this ship. There are daytime shows, there are nighttime shows, there are shows everywhere, and we couldn't even see them all. Even with a back-to-back cruise, if we wanted to do everything, we couldn't see all the shows. I mean, we didn't do everything on the ship anyway, but like trying to fit it all in was just really, really hard. And so some of the highlights are they have the Lion King celebration, which is a fireworks show at sea. It's fireworks set to Lion King music, narrated by a Bollywood star. It's super cool. It's at night. It's at one night of the cruise. It's pretty late at night. I think it was around 10:30. And the show is awesome. The show is worth seeing. We both agreed it was the best fireworks show at sea we've ever seen on Disney. It's pretty good for, anywhere. For on a ship, it's spectacular. But one thing to note about the show is the outside decks on this ship are not super huge. Although the ship is huge, the area where you watch this fireworks show is kind of limited to a couple of small pockets on the ship, and it is crowded. It was so crowded. You still have a great view, even though it's crowded, because it's up in the air. So wherever you stand, you're going to see it pretty well in these areas on deck 17 and 18. It's kind of like the midship areas. You can't really see it from forward and aft very well. And so it's something to note. We aren't people who want to arrive 45 minutes before and try to claim our seats. We feel like on a vacation where we have so much to see and do, that's just not a good use of our time. So we arrived 10 to 15 minutes before every show. And we always have what we call good enough viewing. 10 to 15 minutes, we had good enough. We could see what we wanted to see. We weren't super obstructed. We did not have a plush couch on the deck to watch it from, but it's a 15-minute show. We were fine to stand and we could see everything. The fireworks show was awesome in that sense, but just know that it's a very crowded environment when the ship is full to see this show. They also do the equivalent of Heroes Unite, which I know Lake loves that show. I love that show. We got to see it as a special edition back on our inaugural sailing to Australia across the South Pacific. I was very excited to see what I thought was probably a similar show because they've changed the name. It's called Avengers Assemble on this ship. What was really awesome is they do this show not on the top deck, but they do it in that garden area. And they designed the show to fit in that garden area so well. This show was so just stunning. There is a couple of ways to see this show. You can see it from the top deck looking down. You can see it from deck 10 or 11 in that garden like stage area. And you can sit on the seats. There's a few, they have step down, tiered seats that are just steps that you can also sit on, and it's all the way across the ship. And a lot of people are trying to cram on here. I don't think this is the best place. If you need to sit during the show, you can absolutely see most of the show from this area. But on our cruise, we ended up standing. Again, we showed up less than 10 minutes before the show and crammed into sort of the grass area. The first cruise, they had everybody standing. The second cruise, I saw they had everybody seated on the grass. Either one, you're going to get the same effect. But what's great about this grass viewing is the show is 360. It happens all around you. I don't want to spoil the show if you haven't seen it, but I am telling you this show is a must see on this ship. And the second time we watched it, we were just kind of passing through and it was starting up on deck 17. And so we watched it from the top down. And I'm going to tell you, that was a pretty cool view too. We enjoyed it. It's not the best view, but as a second viewing, it was awesome. And if you just don't want to, kind of make it down to the lower decks to see it, you get a pretty good sense of the show even from watching it top down. It's absolutely worth your time. They count this as one of your nighttime, main theater type shows. They schedule it into the ship. One of the things to note is even though there's a massive 2-story theater, is that with so many people on the ship, they can't fit everybody into the theater at once. And unlike on other Disney ships where they just have, one dinner show for the one dinner and then they switch and you have dinner while the other group's doing the show, they actually showed the dinner show, the Remember, which is the big theater show. They actually showed it multiple nights and Avengers was shown opposite it more or less. And so you were assigned technically one time to see Remember. And if it wasn't full, you could go again. And from my experience, you could easily have gone and seen it multiple showtimes if you wanted. But the Avengers is what they count as one of the night's theater shows, even though it's not shown in the theater. The two theater shows that they do show in the main Walt Disney Theater are Seize the Adventure, which my understanding is it's either similar or identical to the one shown on the other Disney ships that do Seize the Adventure. I have not seen it before. It's a really cute variety show. We really enjoyed it. On 2 cruises, we went and saw it once. So it was good. It was good enough. I didn't go back for a second go at this. Now, the other theater show is called Remember. And I don't want to give a lot away to spoil it, but I am here to tell you that we went and made an effort and saw this show twice. It was that good. We both agreed, this was the best theater show that we have seen on a Disney ship, bar none. And I think this is probably one of the best I've seen in any of the theme parks. And this is quality enough that if they showed this in a little bit longer format on Broadway, it would be a hit. It is that good. This is a must see. Make sure you go to this show. And believe it or not, even on a full cruise, the main floor was very full, very packed. The balcony, you could show up 5 minutes before and be 4 rows back in the balcony and have a pretty good view. We watched it once in the balcony and we watched it once on the main floor. We used that concierge benefit where they let you pick your seats early. That was a total plus. And so we had a front row seat and we'd have had a balcony seat. And I am a front row person, not because I have to be in the front, but I like the experience of actually being that close, hearing the toes tap of the dancers on the stage. I enjoy that. I will say, seeing this show twice, the view is actually probably overall better a little bit further back. If you want the whole experience, I think your overall view is a few rows back. But I've seen it I've seen it in the balcony. I've seen it in the front. Wherever you sit for this show, it is that good. This is a must, do not miss. It's the story of Eve and Wally, and I'm not going to say any more, but honestly, they hit it out of the park. They hit it out of the park, and I did not know anything about it going in, and I was so shocked after the first showing. I went, wow, I did not expect something that good on this ship, and it was just amazing. So definitely put it on your you have to do when you cruise this ship.
I want to be a little snarky, so not Aladdin. They can come up with new IP or new shows. I love it.
If you like Aladdin,
No, I'm not picking on Aladdin. I love Aladdin.
No. If you like Aladdin, you're going to see him a few times on this ship. I'll just leave it at that. If you go see some shows, you're going to see some Aladdin.
Sorry.
Aladdin and Genie make it in some productions here. Don't worry.
Did you guys spend any just quick highlights of places maybe at night after the shows? Any places stand out? Any adult areas, themed areas that you guys enjoyed?
All right. So here's a big difference for this ship. There are no adult only areas. There just aren't. There's bars and lounges. And for the most part, most of the day, those bars and lounges allow families in them. And they're open to the ship. And even the ones that are a little more closed off, in my experience, I went to one of the lounges that was supposed to be adults only, and there was a family with a bunch of kids in there, and they seemed to be having a good time, and it wasn't being strictly enforced during our cruise. That being said, the bars and lounges are not super popular in my experience on this ship. They were not heavily used. I'm used to going into Cadillac Lounge, and you can barely find a seat. There was always a seat open. There was hardly anyone in there. But I will say, for me, I probably spent more time in the bars and lounges on this ship than I ever have, because this ship offers something that no other Disney ship offers to this level and quality. I do not drink alcohol. Disney offers a huge zero proof or non-alcoholic option on this ship. And I don't mean mocktails made with ice cream and bubble gum. I mean legitimate cocktails made with zero proof alcohol. Every bar had a zero proof menu. They had a mocktail menu. They had a non-alcoholic wines and non-alcoholic beers, and each bar or restaurant had different mocktails and cocktails, which meant there are lots of bars and restaurants and lots of places to go and try everything, and you will not be able to drink your way. Even with no alcohol, in a 3-day cruise, you cannot try everything in every lounge, and so I really enjoyed it. I thought the Buccaneers bar, I think it's called, was really cool. It's pirate ship themed. It was really fun. It's not super heavy themed. I've not been on the ships that have some of the really heavily themed bars and lounges. I did go to one of the lounges and accidentally stumbled into the start of a trivia, and I finally came home with the coveted mini medal, which was a big highlight of the cruise for us. Honestly,
Let's go.
Yeah, we love trivia. I don't go to win the medal. I'm not trying to win. I was so excited to actually win a medal finally. Trivia was moderately attended, I would say. There's not as much trivia as you're used to, and it's not as heavily attended, but it was definitely there. Adult activities are not a huge highlight of this ship. And I don't mean because they aren't good, but because that's not what they're highlighting on this ship. What they are highlighting in the activities currently during our cruises were family activities. There was lots and lots of things that everybody did as a family and multi-generational. And so there just wasn't a lot of like adults only. And I'll be honest, I missed the adults only spaces a little bit because there was never anywhere on the ship that you could go that didn't have families. And if you're family, that's awesome because there's nowhere you can't go. But as adults who cruise without kids, we could not find a place where there weren't families other than our stateroom. And I did miss that a little bit, but that's just a difference in the ship, and that was okay. It didn't negatively affect our cruise. It was just something to note.
We could probably talk about the adventure for hours and hours and still never hit enough of it because it's such a massive ship and there's so much to do. So I'm going to move on to a last couple questions for you. Was there maybe one or two more highlight activities or things from around the ship that you wanted to discuss that we haven't yet?
So one of the things that was different for the ship that we were really excited to experience is they have daytime shows, like full-on daytime stage shows. They have a Moana themed one. They have a Duffy and Friends themed one. I never made it to the Duffy and Friends themed one. I kept trying, right? I kept trying to make it. I just never did. The Moana theme one is outside by a pool. It's like it's an interpretive dance water show. That's the best way I can describe it. There's singing, there's songs from Moana. It was a ton of fun. It's a little hot because it's in the sun and there's no shade. But otherwise, it was a great show. And then it was really kind of cool and different is characters are on the ship. Everyone expects that. They have some walk around characters. They also have a lot more scheduled meet and greets through the app where you schedule and meet characters. And man, I'm here to tell you, Mickey is not king on this ship. Not in any way. Duffy and Baymax rule the character roost on this ship. If you want to meet Duffy, forget it. But they also did something really cool, which I've never seen on a Disney ship. This outdoor stage that they use in the gardens, they would have selfies. So they would have all the characters line up. And because the stage is raised, you could come at a certain time and just take a selfie with the characters with you and then the stage and the characters. And that was so popular. And I stumbled on that once. I saw it in the app and I was like, I don't really want to go to this, but I happened to walk through the Duffy one and I took a picture and it was really cool. Like it was a really fun difference of a different way to kind of get your picture with the characters without standing in line and having like a huge interaction. Character meet and greets are super popular on the ship. There's specialty coffee restaurants where you can go to on this ship. There's specialty tea restaurants. There are extra charges. There's a specialty boba. There's so much different, new, and cool stuff. You are going to spend all of your time just trying to do the different stuff, and you're not even going to like notice in a real way some of the things that you're like, wow, that wasn't on the ship. Like I didn't realize until we were pretty far into the cruise that there was no sports deck. I was like, oh, yeah, no, there isn't. Oh, well. I'm headed down to the arcade. And so I think if you're going on this cruise, you have to embrace the differences and enjoy what's different and go in like ready to explore and try something new that you haven't done on a Disney ship before. And it makes it so exciting.
Well, you got to experience 2 sailings on the ship and spend 6 nights aboard. Did you feel like that was enough time to get to experience at least most of what you wanted to?
All right, real talk here. We did a 3-night cruise first. If we had just done a 3-night cruise, we could not have even begun to scratch the surface. 3 nights is not enough. If you're coming, like if you live local and you're just doing a 3-night, you know you're coming back, it's probably enough to get a good taste. If you're coming all the way across the world to go on this cruise, 3 nights is not enough. You will not have even seen everything. By the end of our 4th night on board, we both agreed that we felt like we had gotten a good overview of the really special stuff on this ship. I would not cruise on this ship for my one and only time less than 4 nights. If you want to relax in any meaningful way and not be go, go, go the entire time, you need more than 4 nights. The first 4 nights of our cruise, we're orienting ourselves, trying all the new stuff, seeing everything, no repeats, no redos. And then other than the one show, because obviously the shows repeat that second time. The last 2 nights of our cruise, we tried to slow down a little bit and do some of what we really love about cruising, which is relax, sit on the veranda, just wander around, chill out, eat some ice cream, get some pizza. I think if we're long cruisers. A short cruise to us is anything under 7 days. And I really think if I was doing this if I was going to book it and I had a choice, I would book a 7-night. But at the very least, you've got to do 4 to 6 nights to really get a good sense of the ship if you know this is your one and only time to go on it and you don't think you're going to get another shot at it anytime soon.
Amazing. Wow. Sounds like such an amazing sailing. And I think, again, so much more we could get into, but we are running a little bit long here. Sadly, that will take us into the end of your sailing here. Laurne, how was your embarkation process and what was your plan to get back home?
So debarkation was relatively smooth. We had done it. This was by the time we got off the ship, we had done it once. The way they do back-to-backs, I've never done one before. I don't know exactly how they work on other cruises. But the way they do this one is you basically go through the entire process to get off, like you were leaving the ship, and we could have left. And then you go through the entire process to get back on again. So we knew what we were going into. It's a little more involved getting off this ship than it is in my experience on other cruises I've been on, but it's not complicated. Disney walks you through it. You do have to fill out some additional paperwork online before you're allowed to leave the ship. Disney does make the internet available to do that paperwork, which was really nice, but it's super simple. They walk you through, they tell you what you need to do. They give you all the information to handle it. And we were off the ship in a cab on our way to the airport, and by the time we walked off the ship and were at the airport, it was probably less than 45 minutes. And then we spent a full 10 hours at the airport, and you might go, wow, that didn't seem like good planning. This was intentional. I spent 10 hours at the airport. I had a list of things I wanted to see. I didn't get through the list, and that means I didn't even see everything that's at this airport. The Singapore airport is a destination. They have the world's tallest indoor waterfall. Yeah, I mean, this is just a destination. It's everything you could want in a day activity, and there's an airport attached. And so make sure you leave some time either at the beginning or the end of your trip, or you can go to the airport and see a lot of it. A lot of it is free security, so you can see it as just a day adventure. The airport is worth working into your schedule. There's just so much cool stuff to do. I could spend time talking about just the airport, but just know that you need to leave some time for some airport exploration. And so we spent a full day at the airport and then got on our flight that evening to head home.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the Singapore airport, and if you think about it, add a couple of those so we can put those out, or that Christy can get that out on the website as well, so that people can see it, because it is truly a destination.
Yeah, I don't know if I sent the one to you, Steve, but I have one of that waterfall with the Disney-themed adventure monorail running smack dab in the middle. I'll definitely send you guys that one.
Yeah, you sent that picture, and it almost doesn't look real. I was like, this isn't even a real place. Like, this looks like something that AI came up with or something like that. So, yeah, if you have to spend time at that airport, enjoy it, because it is a destination.
Well, Laurne, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience on the inaugural Disney adventure sailing.
I do have one quick question. Did they give you anything for the inaugural? Did they give out anything? No. Okay, so all right. Well, maybe that's a bad question.
Man, okay. So I kind of had done a little research because I've heard they give out some special gifts on the inaugural. And man, if you're going on an inaugural on a Disney cruise, I don't want to, they can always change what they do, but let's just say leave a lot of extra room in your suitcase. I saw a lot of people buying an extra bag to get home.
Well, my favorite part about getting to talk to you, Laurne, and thank you so much, for letting me come back on and be part of this, is at the end of all of Laurne's shows, she tells us where she and Jason are going to next. So what's up next for you guys?
Yeah, no, you still think you're going to try to trick me into telling you. We never tell anyone where we're going next. But I will say it's not like it'll be 42 years until our next adventure.
Well, there you go. There you go. Well, I always personally look forward to landing and turning my phone on and seeing what amazing text I get from you as to where your next adventure is taking you. So thanks for coming on and sharing your experiences with us, Laurne.
Thanks for having me back. It was so much fun to share this experience. We love traveling. We love the adventure. We love the experiences. And I just love coming back to the show and talking with you guys and helping to inspire people to get out there and try something new and try something different and just go for it and have a blast. There's so much to see in the world, and just get out there and see it.
Can't put it any better. Well, Laurne, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your sailing with us. Steve, thank you so much for coming on and co-hosting with me.
Definitely. It's always a pleasure to come back on and talk with you a little bit, Lake, and also to see you, Laurne.
Of course. Steve, where can our listeners follow you?
Well, I'm pretty much on Instagram, DCL Adventurers. I don't know when this show will come out, but we're heading to Laurne tomorrow. So always trying to post up stuff from our adventures and then also highlighting other friends' adventures as well. So you can find me on Instagram at DCL Adventurers.
And you can follow myself on Instagram and YouTube at MouseGen. And of course, follow Christy, Pack Your Pixie Dust. And if you want to utilize her travel services, you can hit the link down below that says Book with Christy. And you can follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at DCL Podcast, or find more information at our website at dclpodcast.com. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank Laurne for coming on and sharing her adventures on the Disney Adventure. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.